weren't. I mean, she was physically there, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, it's so terrible. You know, Joe Biden, you have the same position as Joe Biden, and you called him a racist.
Yeah.
Okay? You're disingenuous. Secondly, so this is the moment where I realized Kamala Harris, again, was the embodiment of the Democratic Party having serious issues. They asked, how many of you would get rid of private insurance? Bernie Sanders, of course, raises his hand.
Sure.
And it's almost like, I don't know if I'm transposing this in my mind because Kamala Harris is so phony, or if she did it, but it felt like she looked over and raised her hand too.
Like, because it was the right thing to do?
No, because it's like she had to be proven. They were the only two with their hands up. And I'm just like, that's...
Well, that's what I mean. The right thing to do.
Oh, okay, yeah.
People want me to see do this, so I'm going to raise my hand.
So I don't know if she looked... I don't know. But it was clear her expression was, I have to do that. The next day she says, oh, man, I didn't hear the question. I thought she said, who wouldn't get rid of private insurance? I wouldn't get rid of private insurance. That sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's another example. Last week she was like, Epstein, he's a monster. Anyone that's involved in Epstein, especially those damn lawyers that created that plea deal, no one should have anything to do with them. That night, her husband was raising money from Epstein's law firm.
I read that.
So you know what her answer was? Well, none of the specific lawyers that handed over the checks were the ones that worked on Epstein's deal.
Yeah. Well, she's a former attorney general, so she knows the law. So, yeah,
that's a whole nother subject.
What, the fact that she was attorney general, or the fact
that she's known as being a corrupt prosecutor?
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, Willie, I forget his name, the old mayor of San Francisco.
Yeah.
But he basically helped her along. Beto O'Rourke.
Boring.
Yeah.
Absolutely empty suit.
Immigration reform, to legalize pot, and he wants to help rural hospitals. I mean, those are his three big issues. I mean,
what? Rural hospitals.
Well,
he's in Texas.
Yeah, that's why he did so well against Ted Cruz,
right?
Because he got a lot of the rural vote. Because it's a big problem in most of outstate any place is you don't have a real hospital. So where do you send you get sick and you got to go 50 miles this way? And O'Rourke got a lot of former Cruz supporters because he was big on helping out rural hospitals.
Absolutely, yeah.
But, first, immigration reform. That is immigration reform. I'm for him or her because they're for immigration reform. That's like saying I'm for him or her because they're for health care reform.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
There's not...
I'm for better schools.
Exactly. Well, I don't think there's one person in this country who's not for immigration reform. But what do you mean? Do you take down the borders and let everybody in? Or if your last name sounds Hispanic, you get deported. Right. Both are immigration
reform.
Right,
absolutely.
Okay?
Right.
But what do you mean by
that?
Okay.
Right.
He's just kind of, and the biggest thing about Beto O'Rourke is he's in the Hispanic community, and just call me Beto. Nobody's going to call you Beto. You're as white as can be, and you want to be called Beto.
It's so aggravating that people try to make themselves minorities when they're not minorities.
Right, exactly. Don't try to be a minority because, again, most people don't care what you look like.
Right.
And I'm going to go ahead and speak for the Hispanic community here, but I'll bet you a nickel that if you got a Hispanic candidate who sucks and a white or a black candidate who really do seem to have their finger on the pulse of the people, they're not going to vote for the Hispanic person.
It shows why most black voters are picking Joe Biden over Kamala Harris, who stinks,
or Cory Booker,
who stinks, and both of them are people I supported 2 years ago. They get involved in this Democratic Party nonsense, and they become these caricatures of what the party plans for everyone to be, which is nominally progressive, superficially progressive, cosmetically progressive. But I mean, honestly, none of them. Do you really think any of them believe this stuff's going to the Green New Deal is going to happen next year?
No, and it's when you have a candidate that's for climate change, and John Inslee is one of them. He's the former governor of Washington.
That's his
State.
only issue.
It should be the number one priority of the president of the United States.
That's not what it says.
You've lost me.
That's not.
Now, I will tell you.
It doesn't work like that.
I will tell you, I don't know of anybody, and my politics are center-right, okay? Right. But I don't know of anybody who's more green than me.
Right.
Nobody. And I'll also tell you that we have climate change.
Absolutely.
I will also tell you that nobody, absolutely nobody knows that it is for sure because she drives an SUV and we have a coal plant in Labadie. Right. That may contribute to it. Nobody wants to have a dirty environment.
Right.
But that's, if you eliminate every coal power plant and every SUV,
right,
and then the temperature continues to rise, now what? I mean, I've told people, in this part of the country, we pay between 8 and 12 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. Some places less. In fact, here I think we pay sometimes as low as 7 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. Mm-hmm. Why can't we be like Denmark? Mm-hmm. Denmark pays 48 cents an hour, kilowatt hour for electricity. Mm-hmm. What would you do if your electric bill was times by 7? Mm-hmm. How would that affect your lifestyle?
And who's going to be affected the worst by that? Lower income people.
The poorest people, yeah. The millionaires don't care.
No.
If you're a millionaire, if you make $1 million a year and your electric bill is $100 or $1,000, who cares? They don't care.
That's what they're talking about when some people say the Democratic Party and the liberal elitism. Mm-hmm. There is an elitism now that permeates this entire party's primary leadership conceptualization, where anybody with any sense knows that if you're going to jack up the price of energy, it's going to make it harder for poor people.
Exactly.
But then you turn around and say, well, we want to guarantee them $15 an hour. I said, those two ideas don't make sense together. You really don't care about these so-called poor people or these working poor people. Another example, Kamala Harris gets up there, getting back to Kamala Harris, because it was within the NZ thing. They were going back and forth. She goes, they say the unemployment's really low. Well, that's because everyone's working 2 or 3 jobs. That is a lie.
Yeah.
What? If anyone's listening, stop lying about everyone working 2 or 3 jobs. It's a lie.
Yeah.
Most of the population isn't doing that.
Most work 1 job. Now, some have a little bit of a side hustle, but that's not a full-time job. They may play on eBay. Okay.
Yeah.
I buy stuff on eBay and I sell it more. That's not a job. That's a hobby.
Jobs. Mm-hmm. I have 1 full-time job and 1 job. My other jobs are a lot of fun. I make decent money at that too. I'm not like, oh man, I don't have time to eat right. No, I mean it's nonsense. I'll tell you a quick story about this elitism that permeates down. So like about 5 years ago, I was at a place I hang out at a lot, and we were discussing nutrition. And I wasn't putting anyone down, but I was saying, hey, there's certain kids. They were talking about kids who are overweight, and I was saying, and it's like, yeah, it's not the kid's fault. That's all I said. Mm-hmm. And the woman's like, well, was it the parents' fault? And I'm like, I didn't say it was anyone's fault. This is a white woman who considers herself part of the woke, whatever. Mm-hmm. No, it's just, so she goes, well, so how are you going to tell your kid to eat right when you're working 2 or 3 jobs? And it's one of those types of situations where I'm just like, okay, I know this is BS, but she was working, and I just says, okay, fine. And then the guy sitting next to me, a black guy, very educated guy, goes, yeah, it's kind of hard to eat right. Like if you're poor, it's cheaper to go to McDonald's every day than to go to the grocery store. And I'm like, that's not true.
It's not true.
He knew it wasn't true. It's this bad faith.
Yeah.
It filtered down from the political and academic elite. But if I were to say that's not true, then they just attack me personally. And you know what it turned into? You don't have any kids, so you should just shut up. That was her response.
You hear that a lot with people, and they think that if you don't fit the category, if you don't have kids, you can't comment on parenthood.
And and actually, I've had 2 girlfriends with kids, and I was at times more the parent than the girlfriend. Mm-hmm. I didn't bring that up because it's none of their business.
Right.
But it's just interesting how you're like, oh, well, that's the epitome of an ad hom. Like when someone says, when a rich person says, this is bad for the economy or if you do this. Oh, well, you're just a billionaire. It's an ad hom fallacy.
Yeah.
Is he correct or not? It doesn't matter if he's a billionaire or millionaire or whatever.
That's correct.
And so they go off on the right for being so anti-intellectual, and a lot of times they are. Make no mistake. But now that anti-intellectualism is permeating the left at an alarming rate, and it's much more devastating for them because of they're supposed to be this diverse myriad of different ethnic groups and different whatever. But when black folks and Latino aren't progressive the way they want them to, they, in their own sly way, denigrate them worse than Donald Trump. And this is, and I'll give me an example of this. No matter how much MSNBC, Joy Reid, who's a black commentator on MSNBC, who I used to like, and now I consider her as bad as anybody on Fox or whatever. So when someone decides Joe Biden said something racist, they spend a week going, black people aren't going to be happy about that. Then they get the polls. No black people leave Joe Biden. Why? Because they're not looking at the color of his skin, and they're not offended that in 1975 he said something about a segregationist. They're comparing him to the other people, and they're saying they like him more. So then they'll be like, well, you know, okay, I guess older black people, they don't really, as long as his name's Biden, it's cool. They're saying things like this on MSNBC. Oh, older black people, they don't really care. They know his name. Now, these are people who are supposed to be academic experts in blackness. They were all about defending black folks when Obama was president and when Trump was a big racist. And now, because they want people to like they want people to like Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, Joy Reid and most of her black hosts are saying black people basically are stupid for not dropping Joe Biden for Kamala Harris because he's an old white guy.
Yeah.
And that is brutally racist.
To me, and I don't like to call people racist, but what I will say, it's a racist remark.
Yes.
When anybody takes a group of people and pigeon them, whether it's the blacks, the whites, the Hispanics, the gays, the Catholics, because none of these people think. Do you get together with a whole bunch of black people and say, "Hey, how are we going to vote this time around?"
It's never happened one time.
No, never. It doesn't happen with anybody.
Black people don't all have the same ideology.
And why is that? Because they're individuals like anybody else. I'll give you an example. Yeah. If you take a woman who lives in the inner city, never graduated past 8th grade, has no money, maybe 2 illegitimate kids, and has been on welfare her whole life. I don't think any kids are a little illegitimate. I don't believe in kids without a man who was their father. Okay. Is that
that's? I know what you're saying. I'm just messing with you.
Okay. And then the gentleman, I forget his first name, Johnson.
Yeah.
The billionaire.
Yeah.
Okay, who came out last week and said, you know what? I'm a Democrat, but you guys are screwing up because you're going way too far. Those are 2 black people, but they are nothing alike.
Absolutely.
Except for the color of their skin. Because they're on opposite ends of the sex spectrum, the lifestyle, the money, everything. So you can't say the black people. You can't say the gay people. So I guess that what's his face, Mayor Pete is just like Milo Yiannopoulos. Same, right? No, they're nothing alike. No. So you can't say the gays, Catholics. You can take the old Archbishop of St. Louis, Burke, who was very, very conservative, and basically the Pope kind of stuck him out in left field because he was so far. Right. And then you can take Father Flager.
Right, Father Flager, yes.
They're both Catholic, but my gosh, they're nothing alike.
Father Flager is definitely not conservative.
No.
He hung out with Jeremiah Wright.
That's correct.
He's really
correct.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't take any group and pigeonhole them and say, we need to do this to get the fill in the blank vote. Once upon a time, it was kind of true, but today it's just not.
I'm basically agreeing with you, except from working in political science. That's not exactly how they think. They do, which is why Donald Trump does some of what he does. Why Harris is now pretending to be a civil rights guru. There's still a school of thought that says it's advertising, it's marketing. And when marketing, what you do is I'm talking to you, and you're an individual that's like everyone else. Yeah. That's the scam. So there is a political scam that says you're not like everyone else. You're completely unique in your conformity.